Howdy, and welcome to a special bonus episode of T-Shirts and Shawls. I'm Karen, and today is Wednesday, April 12th. Usually I record every other Thursday, and so I normally would not have an episode until next week on Thursday, but I just finished with DFW Fiber Fest and didn't want to wait a whole extra week before I talked about it, so I thought I would record a bonus episode. But I will go ahead and number it as a regular episode, so that makes this episode 25. So, DFW Fiber Fest. If you've been watching the podcast, you probably heard me mention it a few times. If this is your first time watching the podcast, DFW Fiber Fest is Dallas-Fort Worth in Texas, and it is a Fiber Fest that started out very small. It is completely volunteer run. And this was its 12th year, and each year it has just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and better, and it has become one of the kind of most recognized, really great Fiber Fests in the United States. A lot of teachers really enjoy teaching here and actually, seek out teaching spots, and vendors are coming from both locally as well as across from the United States. So it is really exciting each year just to see it just continue getting better and better. So I am very fortunate to be part of it as a vendor. Before I was a vendor, I came and shopped the vendor hall. There was one year where I was a student for the entire weekend. I took 6 classes, and the past 3 years I have been a vendor. So I thought that I would just this episode talk about my experiences with Fiber Fest, so we won't have any of the regular segments of the podcast. So I'll go ahead and tell you all about it. So last week on Thursday was vendor setup, and that started at 2 p.m. And I knew from previous years that cars line up to be able to get into the loading dock area. So I wanted to be there by at least 1:30 so that I could get in line and be allowed into the loading dock as close to 2 o'clock as possible, because it usually takes quite a while to set up. So Thursday morning I dropped my son off at preschool and came home and got and started packing the car. And I knew things were going to be tight. I drive a Honda CR-V, so it's a smaller SUV, and I have 6-foot grid walls, so 6 feet by 2 feet. Plus other, things to put in the booth, a table and whatnot, and obviously all the yarn. So the first thing to do is put in the grid walls, and in order to fit them in, I have to fold down all my seats, and then the front passenger seat, I have to lay all the way back, so it kind of creates a space where I can slide in grid walls. So I got all the grid walls in, and then I started packing all the other stuff. And I realized that what I had suspected was definitely true. I was not going to be able to fit everything in my car. So I have 2 people that helped me out at the booth this weekend, Alyssa and Lindsay. And so I texted Alyssa and I said, yeah, you had asked if I needed you to bring things up to the convention center. Are you still able to do that? Because I think I need you. And so she and Lindsay very graciously drove to my house, and we rearranged things in my car and put some things in Lindsay's car. And we made our way to the convention center. So I got there a little before 1:30 as planned, and sure enough, already there was a line, so I just got in the line, and I basically sat there for 30 minutes listening to Hamilton. So had the windows down, there was a nice breeze, it just felt really good, and I just enjoyed listening to the music. And at 2 o'clock, they started letting cars in, and they let us in one at a time to make sure that we went to the place that we were directed. There was a security guard there letting us in. So, there's a huge line of cars. Behind me, I couldn't even see the end of the line. It was so long. And to get to the convention center, the loading dock area, there's where the cars were lined up, which is around the side of the parking garage. But there's also an entry from the very back end. And there was this car that all of a sudden just zoomed in and went past the security guard and went straight into the gate, into the loading dock, just cutting in front of the line. And the security guard went running after the car. And I'm not sure who it was, but there was a lot of, hand gestures. You could tell that there was a heated discussion with the security guard, but ultimately the security guard let them park and they unloaded. And although it's kind of rude to cut in line, I did notice that there were still parking spots available. Sometimes that lot gets full and people actually have to wait until someone else moves. But fortunately, there were still spots, so that was good. Anyway, so I finally got in, got my car parked, and started unloading. And Lindsay and Alyssa were there to help me unload, which thank goodness, because unloading a ton of grid walls is definitely not fun. Although I would love to have a dolly, like I saw lots of people using to carry the grid walls. I mean, I could barely fit the booth stuff in my car. Had to borrow the friend's car. There's no way that I could also fit a dolly, so had to carry them in by hand, one or two at a time. Anyway, so we got the car unloaded. We got the grid walls set up. Usually what I do is I stack the grid walls up as I unload, and then I put the grid walls up. But this time what I did is I actually put the grid walls in place as we brought them in, so that way there wasn't a giant stack. And that actually seemed to help, just both getting set up a little bit quicker and also just having the grid walls not be in the way. So we finally got the car unloaded, moved them to the parking garage to clear space for other people. And then we started the setup. So that was starting about 2 o'clock. It took us about an hour to unload and get the grid walls up, and then putting the booth together. We did that until 7:30. So that is almost 5.5 hours of booth setup. Definitely, a lot of work, but I was really happy with how it came together in the end. I tried a slightly different layout from what I've used before, and I was really happy with it. Though there was only one little bump in one of the back corners of my booth. There was a giant electrical cable that I wasn't able to move, and so I couldn't get my grid walls flush in the back corner at a 90-degree angle like I really wanted to. I had to kind of have them moved out a little bit, and so I did have to improvise along the wall over here. I wasn't able to fit, because it's a 10 by 10 booth, and I wanted 5 2-foot grid walls, so 10 feet along that side, and I wasn't able to fit 5. I could only fit 4. If I put a 5th one on, I would have been into the aisle, which we're not allowed to do. But fortunately, I had a 1 by 5, so it's a little shorter, but it's only a 1-foot grid wall, and I was able to put that on the end and to not lose so much space. Because, going from potentially 5 feet of grid wall space to 4 feet of grid wall space, or 5 times 2, 10 feet of grid wall space to 8 feet of grid wall space, that's a lot of space lost. So I at least only went from 10 to 9. Anyway, I got all the yarn hung up on the hooks, because I use grid walls and hooks, and realized that I had no space for Guinevere or Lancelot. Lancelot is my worsted weight base. Guinevere is fingering weight 2-ply. Super great for lacy shawls. Anyway, so I had no space to put them on the grid walls. And so what I ultimately decided to do was have the plastic boxes that I carry some of the yarn in on the floor, which, I know it's not the best to have people have to kind of bend down and basically look through boxes on the floor, but it was either that or not have those that yarn there. So just being flexible, trying to set up the booth with a plan in mind, but knowing that sometimes that plan has to change. Anyway, so finished, like I said, about 7:30. I was really, really tired. The one really good thing about DFW Fiber Fest is that I only live, depending on traffic, about 30 minutes away from the convention center. So I was able to drive home on Thursday night, which is good because I did still have a couple of things that I needed to bring. So I drove home Thursday night, was able to... Luke had just been put to bed when I got home, so he hadn't fallen asleep yet, so I got to go in and say goodnight to him. and then just kind of relax that for the rest of the evening and get up early the next morning and go through rush hour traffic to get to the convention center, which I obviously planned for, and it actually wasn't that bad. The only really bad moment was when I was getting off one highway to go on a service road where I had to turn right to go to the next highway. I knew that that place where I exit, you have to immediately get over into the right lanes, across several lanes of traffic and get into the right lane to be able to turn. There's just not very much space that you get. And I knew that traffic was usually backed up in that right lane. And unfortunately, traffic was very backed up. And I thought there was a gap between two cars. And so, I got over there and started kind of putting the nose of my car in, put on my signal, to get over there. And man, the car behind me apparently did not want to let me in, because as soon as the traffic moved, that car just shot forward. And again, even though I had my signal on and I thought it was pretty obvious that I wanted to get over, no one let me over. So I thought, okay, I'm not gonna panic. I can do this. I really don't want to have to deal with a fender bender this morning. So I just went through the light and went straight instead of turning, and grabbed my phone. And the one time that Siri came in handy, I said, get directions for the Irving Convention Center. And fortunately, there was kind of a back way, so I didn't even have to double back. I actually just took some roads and went to the convention center that way. And it actually was a pretty good way to get there. And I'm kind of glad that the car cut me off or didn't let me in, because it allowed me to find a different way to get to the convention center. So on days like that where the traffic is heavy, then I'll just take that other path and not have to worry about trying to get into that huge line of traffic. So it actually turned out just fine. Anyway, so I got to the convention center, did the last little bit of setup, and then the vendor hall opened. And I was pretty busy throughout the day on Friday, which is always a good thing. There were, moments where I wanted to talk a little bit more with some people, but there were other people waiting. But I did get to chat with quite a few people, some people who are familiar, who I've seen many times before, some people who I have interacted with on social media, Instagram or Ravelry, that I hadn't met in person. So it was nice to put some faces to those names, and then a lot of new people. So always really exciting, just the whole weekend, getting to see everybody new and familiar. And the exclusive self-striping colorway, I had 19 skeins, and by the end of the day, Friday, I had 4 left. So good news that it was popular and people liked it, but not so great news for the rest of the weekend, because not everyone is able to, come on Friday. A lot of people have to work or they're traveling, and so their big day to come is Saturday, and so I only had 4 skeins for Saturday. So I was thinking about, contingency plans, so I'll get to that when I get to Saturday. So that went really well. I got to see several of the test knits for the projects, the cowls for my book. Several test knitters came by and showed me either their completed cowl or their cowl in progress. So that was really fun to see. I also saw several other projects using my yarn or my patterns. One was the Lady Bertolette cowl, which is currently in the DFW Designers collection. So that is a collection and knit along for designers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And this month, April, is actually my month in the collection. My pattern is up for people to knit. And so somebody had already finished their cowl and brought it to show me in this really, really pretty purple. So I enjoyed being able to see that in person. And like I said, just lots and lots of fun talking to people. And kind of early on in the morning, someone who is part of the yarn club and has followed my yarn for a while, we were chatting about things, and she said that she is going to be moving and downsizing. And one of the things that she's doing is cutting down on her book collection. She has a lot of books. I definitely understand that. and she just was going to have to cut back to fit her new space. And she said there are some special books that she's trying to find, good homes for. And she asked me if I would be interested in an autographed copy of The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley. And I have to admit, I was shocked. Marion Zimmer Bradley is my favorite author. The Mists of Avalon is my favorite book. Unfortunately, Marion died quite a few years back now, and one of my I wouldn't really say a regret, but something that I wish I had done was have the chance to meet her before she died, and unfortunately, I did not do that. When I was in my master's program, I took a women's biography class, and for our project for that class, we picked a woman. Preferably a female author, and we were supposed to, our paper that we wrote for the class was to write as if it were a chapter out of a larger biography that we were writing about this person. And so I chose Marion Zimmer Bradley, and my chapter that I wrote focused on her experiences as an editor, so basically helping other writers, so publishing their works, both in her Sword and Sorcery anthologies and the magazine of fantasy and science fiction that she was an editor of for quite a while. Anyway, so when I was offered an autographed copy of The Mists of Avalon, I have to admit I got choked up and had to wipe a few tears away because what an incredible gift. I mean, that is truly, truly amazing. So she had not brought it with her because she wanted to make sure that I was interested. Of course I'm interested. Anyway, she wanted to make sure I was interested. So she brought it back the next morning. So here is The Mists of Avalon. And there is Marion Zimmer Bradley's autograph. So now this book is doubly special because favorite book, favorite author, autographed, but also given to me as a gift by someone who knew that I would appreciate it. So this is really, really incredible. And again, the idea of the community, the fiber community, is just truly amazing. And I am so blessed to be part of it. So not only did I get to see lots of people and lots of really fun things that had been knitted and crocheted, I also got a little gift that is just so meaningful. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what else on Friday during the day. Mostly I hadn't really had a chance to look at the vendor hall much prior to that. Usually on Thursday during setup, I take some time to walk around the vendor hall, but it took so long for setup and I was exhausted that I hadn't done that. And I was still getting things set up on Friday morning, so I hadn't really looked at the vendor hall. And I didn't get a chance to look when the vendor hall closed sometimes, because the vendors are allowed to stay in the vendor hall for a little bit. Sometimes I take a quick walk at the end of the day. But Friday night was the Friday night talk with Clara Parks, and that was at 7 o'clock. So the vendor hall closed at 6, and Clara talked at 7, so I didn't have a lot of time. So I basically, did a couple of little things to make sure the booth was good to be left overnight. And then that night I actually stayed in the hotel, even though it's not far to drive back home. It was just easier to stay in the hotel Friday night. So I was staying in the hotel where the talk was being given. So jumped in the car, drove over to the hotel, which was not far at all. Got checked in, ran up to my room, put all my stuff down. I was starving, but I didn't really have time to eat. But there were some hors d'oeuvres that were available for the talk, so cheese and things like that. So I went down there and got some hors d'oeuvres to kind of tide me over, and I found Tim, who is one of the knitters that I know, so I asked if I could sit by him, and so we sat down, and then one of our other friends, Elizabeth, came up, so the three of us sat together for the talk. And when the talk started, there were door prizes that were given out. So many door prizes, so many generous donations being given. And unfortunately, I didn't win anything. Elizabeth did, but I didn't win anything, and which is fine. It was fun to see everyone's excitement whenever their number was called. So good times. So I would think I was 171, and I think like 172 was called. So came close. Anyway, but Clara's talk was really fantastic. Not that I wasn't expecting it to be. That's why I went. I love Clara Parks. And her talk was about the legends of Knitlandia. So talking about people who are very important in the fiber community. So some of them were like knitting teachers or designers, such as Elizabeth Zimmerman. Can't talk about Legends of Knitlandia without Elizabeth Zimmerman. Some were owners of mills that process and spin fiber, so those are very important people. And some of those I had heard about before from Clara Parks in the talk that she gave us 2 years ago when I went to the Strung Along retreat. That was in April 2 years ago. So that was really fun to kind of hear about them again in a little bit in a different setting. So various mill owners. And one of the Legends of Knitlandia, of course, is Stephanie Pearl McPhee, also known as the Yarn Harlot, who was a teacher also at DFW Fiber Fest that weekend. However, she, at that moment, was on a plane back to Canada. So Friday night. In case you do not read the Yarn Harlot's blog, which, by the way, I really do recommend that you read it. She writes really well, and she has great stories to tell. So if you don't already read her blog, highly recommend it. So I've been reading her blog for I don't even know how many years, but her daughter was expecting her first baby and Stephanie's first grandchild. And even though the due date was not for another 2 weeks, obviously Stephanie was concerned about leaving and being gone, just in case. Her daughter went into labor while she was gone. If you know Stephanie from her blog or in person, she is family is extremely, extremely important to her. But she's also very, very much honors her commitments. So knowing that she had committed to teaching at DFW Fiber Fest, which, by the way, she said she loves, one of her favorite festivals, even though she was committed and she wanted to fulfill her commitment, she was obviously concerned about leaving her daughter behind. And apparently that concern was well-founded, because she found out on Friday that her daughter had indeed gone into labor. So there she was, here in Texas. Her daughter's up in Canada. And fortunately, Stephanie was able to get a flight back to Canada, and she made it back to be there for the birth of her grandchild. Yay! And everybody was very supportive, even though that meant obviously that her classes on Saturday and Sunday, she wasn't going to be there. I did not hear anyone express, maybe there was, but I didn't hear anyone express any negativity about her not being there to teach her classes. The board met on Friday night after the talk to come up with a contingency plan, and I think that what they decided was a really, really great. Basically, the people that were in the Saturday and Sunday classes, they are going to, the next time Stephanie comes back to teach at DFW, they will get priority placement in those classes since they had already signed up. And then they could choose to either get a refund for the class or classes they'd signed up for, to move to another class that had an open spot, or Elisa Barton, also known as the Knitting Fairy, who is the owner of my own local yarn shop, who is an amazing teacher. She was experienced in the information that Stephanie was going to cover in her classes. So she stepped in, and those who wanted to go ahead and take those classes, she actually taught them. So I think it's incredible that just, last minute she had the materials and the knowledge to be able to teach those classes. So that's really fantastic. And I think that was probably a very fair way of treating the students who had signed up for those classes. So I think all around, I hope everyone was a winner. So that's a nice thing to be able to have someone who has a personal, family situation to be able to go to her family. And really, really happy that she made it, that Stephanie made it back in time to see her grandson be born. Anyway, so that's Friday night. Yeah. So the talk was great. Afterwards, Clara and some of the other authors were signing books, and I'd actually brought one of my Clara Parks books to be signed, but in all honesty, by that point, I was just tired. I am very much an introvert, and even though I enjoy going to the festivals, being around people and talking to people is very, very draining, and I need time alone to recharge. And because I had already met Clara Parks 2 years ago and got to take classes from her and everything, I decided that I was just going to go back up to the hotel room, just kind of veg out for a little bit, get to sleep early, and be ready for Saturday, because Saturday, even though Friday was a big day, Saturday's usually the really big day. So I needed to make sure I had plenty of energy for that. So up to the hotel room, went to bed, got up early the next morning, had a nice leisurely breakfast, went over to the convention center, and yeah, I was pretty much, again, busy all day Saturday, so which was fantastic. Thank you so much to everyone who was there, who stopped by my booth. It was great to see you. I had several of you mention that you watch the podcast, so hello. Thanks for letting me know that you watch. It's kind of, in some ways, kind of weird to know that there are people that I didn't even realize watch the podcast tell me that they watch the podcast. So kind of exciting to know that you guys are watching. So highlights of Saturday. Again, got to see lots of familiar and new faces, lots of projects. The self-striping exclusive colorways sold out pretty early, and so what I did is I put up a sign that it was sold out, but I was taking pre-orders, and so if someone really wanted it, I'm going to dye it this week. In fact, I plan to, as this episode is uploading, I plan to do the prep work for those pre-orders, and then to do the dyeing tomorrow, so those can get out to the people who ordered them. And people that I saw that I wanted to mention, one of my best friends from high school was able to make it to the festival, and I hadn't seen her in person for a while, so it was really great to see her, get to chat with her for a little bit. I've actually mentioned her on the podcast, I think very early on, either the first or second episode, my friend Emily. So very happy that she made it and I was able to see her. I also got to see Elizabeth Green, who you may know. She designs under the name Dark Matter Knits. She also had a podcast for a while, a really good podcast. And she does graphic design. In fact, she is my graphic designer. So all the pretty layout of my patterns and of my Gawain Shield book and the logo for Roundtable Yarns, all of that is Elizabeth's work. I love her. She is a really, really amazing woman. Last year at Fiber Fest, I got to have dinner with her, and we had a really great conversation. This year we weren't able to talk for very long, but we did get to chat for a little bit. I told her about the Parliament of Cows, the new book. Gave her some ideas, what I was thinking about as far as the design and layout. She's excited about working on it, so yay, that was a great conversation. And trying to think if there are any other Saturday kind of events. A little bit of stash enhancement. So I think on Saturday what I got was this from Brazen Stitchery. So maybe let the glare be out. So Brazen Stitchery, Stacy is a friend. I've known her for a while. She's sometimes comes to the Mafia, my knitting group meetings. Anyway, this is one of her new self-striping colorways. It is a Harry Potter based colorway, and this one is Molly. And this is a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. So I really liked this colorway. I almost got Hermione because I also really liked those colors, but I decided on this one. And this is Stacy's new label. So I think it's a really, really pretty label. And she's also doing I didn't get one, but she's also doing where you've got the little mini skein for the heel and toe that actually comes with it. So she actually had it, tucked inside with the label. I think Hermione actually came with a mini skein. But I mentioned that because she also has a Fred and George colorway. And she said what she did is she actually has 2 mini skeins for that one, so that way you can do one sock with one color heel and toe and the other sock with the other color heel and toe for Fred and George, for the twins. So I thought that was really cute. But I really like these colors, and I think that I will really enjoy knitting some socks out of this. So I grabbed that. And then I did some more stash enhancement on Sunday, so I'll get to the other stuff in a little bit. And then Saturday, I was pretty exhausted. I went back home. I was able to get home in time to spend some time with Luke before he went to bed. So I got to do that. Sunday morning, since the vendor hall didn't open until 10, I was able to to wake up, to cook pancakes, to have breakfast, and then to head up to the convention center for the final day. And Sunday is usually a pretty slow day. It is a day that most people have spent their budgets already, but there are some last minute, things to buy. But it's also the best day for vendors to shop with other vendors. So with my wonderful booth help, which by the way, the whole weekend, Alyssa and Lindsay, came by, refilled my water bottle, let me take a bathroom break, got me lunch, checked up on me quite a few times. So I really, really appreciate their help. Even though the DFW Fiber Fest is also awesome about having volunteers come around to do those same things, which I think is absolutely amazing and fantastic. It was nice to have my own kind of dedicated booth help. So I appreciate that. So with their help, by sitting in my booth for a little while, I was able to do a bit of shopping. So one of the things I did was actually not so much shopping as trading. So sometimes I have yarn that has a mistake. Either there is a blotch that shows up on it, although usually I over dye those, or I find a knot in the skein, or I find, in fact, I've got one right here. So this is my Avalon base. Where did the knot go? Maybe I put the label over the knot. So this is my Avalon base, one of my new colorways. And as I was rescanning it, I noticed there was a giant knot. And it wasn't like, some attempt at a splice. It was just an absolute giant knot, which now I'm not even seeing. Anyway, so skeins like this don't meet my selling requirements. Sometimes also, as I'm rescanning, a skein will snap, or sometimes like a single ply will snap, and that occasionally something like a ply breaking could get by me, but if I see it, I don't put that yarn for sale. So I have a stack of yarn that's not sellable. And so Heather of Panorama Fiber, which by the way, I don't do gradients. So if you like gradients, go check out Heather's Panorama Fiber. I will do show notes for this episode, and I will link to her in the show notes. She does gorgeous, gorgeous gradients. Anyways, so she had wanted my Windows of the Night self-striping colorway, and unfortunately one of those, I had one that the ply snapped, and so I asked her if she would be interested in that, and she said she would actually be interested if I would trade, because she also has things that have dye mishaps or whatnot. So she brought several things to show me that she had available for trade, and what I ultimately picked out, and this is not, this is still in its blank form, so she basically creates a blank and does the dyeing on this, and then she unravels it and puts it into the cake that actually is sold. So I saw this one and decided this was really great for a trade. So all I have to do is basically unsnip the white yarn right there, and that's the waste yarn, and then I can just knit directly from this, or if I really wanted to, I could wind it into a cake. Anyway, so she had these kits available that had a really, really cute turtle bag, and it had a pattern for the shawl that had turtles on it. So it was super cute, which, by the way, I think she said she had 20 and she sold out on Friday, so yay for Heather. Anyway, so this was her prototype of the yarn for that kit. She ultimately decided to change the colors, either the kind of the length of the color or the color sequence. I don't remember exactly what the change was, but this was her prototype for that kit. So it's kind of cool that I get that. I really, really loved how it came out to this really bright blue on the end. So I'll have to come up with something appropriate to make with that. Then I went to, and this isn't a package, so I'm going to try not to let it crinkle. Canon Hand Dyes was at DFW Fiber Fest for the first time, and I have never bought anything from Canon Hand Dyes, even though I've always kind of meant to, because a lot of things are literary themed, so I really like that. And this one doesn't actually seem to have a name as far as the colorway. But anyway, she had some really gorgeous gradient sets. So here's Canon Hand Dyes. And then this gorgeous gradient set, I would like to knit on the Spice Market. So it is a shawl pattern that a lot of people have been making. And it uses one main color of yarn and then basically 6 other colors. And she actually has this really neat sticker on here with pattern suggestions. And on the Spice Market is one of those patterns. The designer of that is Melanie Berg. So this is a base that is a merino cashmere silk. So really luxurious base. And I figured that I can either dye the full skein myself, that will be the other color, or I can search through my stash, or buy something else that will be the full skein. So really excited to get this. I think the colors are gorgeous. I'm thinking of something much lighter to go with this, to be able to kind of set off all of these gorgeous jewel tone colors. So put the crinkling down. So I was really happy to get that. And then for this second quarter for the knit along or crochet along for this podcast, the theme is any shawl made using at least 2 different colors of yarn. And I think I mentioned this last time. If not, I mentioned it in the Ravelry group for the podcast. I want to knit Rice Fields, which is a shawl that is a 2-color brioche shawl. And I was planning on, going through my stash and trying to find something. But I thought, you know what? If I see some yarn that I think would make a really good Rice Fields, maybe I'll pick that up this weekend. And I did. So I went to the Yarn Carnival booth, which is also yarn that I have wanted to buy and knit with for quite a while, and again, just haven't. The dyer, she actually came to my booth and got a couple of things, so thought definitely go check out her booth and see if there are some colors that speak to me for Rice Fields. And sure enough, I found what I think is going to be a really gorgeous Rice Fields. So I almost went with a blue and gray, so kind of a tartasy blue and gray. I really like those combinations. So I almost went with that, but I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try something a little bit different. So I got this. Do you see how pink that is? It's like hot pink. And then this one is gray, so most of it is gray, and it is a speckle dye, but it definitely has some of that pink in there, and then some other splotches there. But I think especially in the 2-color brioche, putting these two together, I think that will be really cool. And so I am looking forward to winding these and getting started on that shawl, which I will probably do before next week, before I film the next episode. So hopefully you'll see the start of that. But anyway, so this is Yarn Carnival. Get the glare off so you can see that. So Yarn Carnival. And the pink is Frippery. Isn't that a cool color? And this one is Punk Rock Girl. So very, very cool. And this is a 100% superwash merino fingering weight. It is called High Wire. So that's the name of the base. So that is all I got as far as yarn is concerned. I did not get any fiber because I will be going to Ply-Away in 2 weeks, and I know that there will be so much fiber there that I will have lots of things to choose from. There were a couple of vendors who were at DFW that I really would have liked to shop with, but I know they're going to be at Ply-Away, and so I thought I would just wait until I get to Ply-Away when I actually have time, because I'm not a vendor myself at Ply-Away, until I have time to actually shop the vendor hall. So October House is one of the ones I'm looking forward to. Mohair and More usually brings a lot of breed-specific fiber, so I enjoyed visiting with them at Ply-Away last time, and so I will do that again. So more shopping to come as far as fiber is concerned, but I did get something that was spinning related. So in my booth, right across from me was Western Sky Knits, and then right next to Western Sky Knits was a double booth that was Clemis and Clemis, which I had always pronounced Clems and Clems, but apparently it is 2 syllables, so I learned that. So if you don't know, they basically make lots of different tools for knitters and spinners. So they actually have spinning wheels, they have hand cards, they have lazy Kates, they have drum carders, lots and lots of drum carders, and in fact offered a special drum carding class on Thursday. Anyway, so I think I've mentioned before that I've been wanting to get some hand cards. So indeed, they had hand cards, and at kind of a slowish moment, I went and talked to one of them about hand cards and, you know, which one I should potentially pick. And I went ahead and I thought, you know, they're also going to be at Ply-Away. And I thought, well, maybe I can wait until Ply-Away and then I can get them there. But then I thought, you know what? I've only used hand cards once, and I really wasn't super confident in doing it. So maybe what I should do is buy them now and then kind of practice before Ply-Away. Although none of my classes require hand cards, just in case, I thought it would be good to actually kind of know what I'm doing or have a little better idea what I'm doing. So I went ahead and bought them. So here are my new hand cards. So there you go. I have not used them yet, so they're still very fresh. I decided to go ahead and get the cherry. So these are made out of cherry. They have just kind of the regular kind of plain ones that they do. And then they have cherry, and they have, I think it's walnut. It's a darker wood. And one other wood. But I really like cherry. So that is what I got. And I'm looking forward to trying them out. I need to go through my fiber stash, and I know that there is one fiber I have that's kind of gotten really compacted and maybe in places almost felted, and I thought that I would actually try carding some of it to see if I can get that compacted fiber in a much easier to spin form. And then, you know, I've never really spun from Rolags very much, so I thought that would be something fun. So we'll see. I hope that I get some practice and we'll be able to share some of those adventures either next week or on a future podcast episode. And that was all of my purchases. Like I said, I'll be going to Pliaway in 2 weeks. So I kind of wanted to save a little bit of budget to be able to do some shopping up there. And so Sunday came to an end, and it was the, packing up the booth and trying to get everything back in the car. And I almost succeeded because thank you guys so much. I didn't have as much yarn as I came with. So I was able to fit almost everything in my car. The only thing I couldn't fit was my mannequin body and one box. So Lindsay was able to put those two things in her car. And I was able to get home on Sunday. I kind of unpacked some of the main things. I left all the grid walls in the car, but I unpacked some of the main things. Had enough time to kind of snuggle with Luke for a little bit and just kind of chill out. And that was Fiber Fest. Monday I did my inventory, got everything posted back to the online shop. So if you had looked at the online shop last week, everything was sold out. Inventory was set at 0. So now the shop is full again. And so if you're interested in something, you can go check it out. I do still have some self-striping, including Archimedes, that brown with the red stripe. That I did for the Coffee with Cece book. I still have some skeins of that. I still have some of that pastel rainbow, the Fair Unknown. So if you're interested in those colors and you didn't make it to Fiber Fest, it is available online. And then tomorrow I will most likely be going to the Knitting Fairy for Spin Night, and we'll take some of my yarn back up there because right now there is no roundtable yarns up at the ferry because I had taken it all for Fiber Fest. So hopefully that will be replenished soon as well. Whew. And this is why I thought that I would do a bonus episode. I'm looking at the time that I've been talking, and this is pretty much a full episode just with sharing my DFW Fiber Fest adventures. So I will be back next week with my regularly scheduled podcast on Thursday. So calendar, so that will be Thursday, April 20th. So I will be back to talk, share what I've been knitting, and other things that I've been doing and have been going on around here. And then right after that, I leave for Pliaway. And so the episode after that one, I'll tell you all about that experience. And if you are going to be at Pliaway, let me know because I would love to see you there. Since I'm not a vendor, I have a lot more free time. I definitely would like to get together with people for meals. I will be working the registration desk because I do help out with that. And then I've got a few classes. But beyond that, definitely looking for people to share meals with. So if you will be there, let me know. And I would love to sit down and talk. Share a meal with you and share all the fun spinning goodness. So thank you so very much for watching, especially for those of you who are returning viewers. For those of you who are new to the podcast, I did pass out business cards about the podcast. So if you're new to the podcast, usually I have segments that I do for each episode. So what I'm knitting, what I'm spinning, what I'm reading, and all of those types of things. So this is a little bit unusual, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will come back next time or check out some of the earlier episodes to see what a usual episode is like. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks, and happy knitting!